Well, with school kids these days having a break every 2 months or so it seems, parents and grandparents are probably scratching their heads wondering what to do with them. In this month's edition of Ranger Nick, UGA professor Dr. Nick Furman shows us there's all kinds of fun stuff right in your own backyard.
Hey everybody, Ranger Nick. Hope y'all are doing great. I was just sitting here replying to a friend of mine on text message. He sent me a note. He's been struggling with his New Year's resolution. How you doing on yours? One of mine this year has been to get outside more and even involve kids in the outdoors more. I can't tell you, and I think you'll agree with me, I can tell you how often I see folks walking around with these things in their hands staring at them when really they should be looking around them. What we're going to do this time, and appreciate y'all watching us, is have a look around in the woods. I'm going to take you through a 3-step process today on this month's segment. We're going to talk about how to make observations out in the woods. I think you're going to have a good time with it. We're actually going to do some playing around, see if we can find some wildlife out here for you today. So hang in there with us. All right, so we're out in the woods today. Beautiful day in mid-February here outside of Athens. Got a little quiz for you. We're going to talk about how to observe stuff out in the woods, and this is kind of fun. I want you to look through the landscape behind me and tell me what you see. There are 2 things back there in the landscape I want you to see if you can pick up on. Have a look back there and see what you got. One of the things I want this activity to do for us is to show you just how to observe things. Observing is step 1 in our 3-step plan today. And by the way, I'll mention to you, observing starts with an O. So let's see if we can spell something together today. See what you can observe. You see anything? Maybe you look back here and if you were paying attention, you happen to see, and I'll cut back here through the trees, little snow on the ground, you happen to see this guy standing right out in clear view, the American flag bandana. Great. But maybe you weren't as astute, maybe you weren't as critical with your looking and didn't happen to see my little buddy back here in this tree. Did you see my friend Albert? I don't know if you know Albert or not, but this is one of these just incredibly dangerous local species here to Georgia, Albert the owl. He was sitting back here in the trees, and I know it may sound funny to kind of joke with you about seeing things, but literally, folks, especially with kids today, we're so attached to that phone, we're not really attuned to how to observe things. Training your eye to find things in the landscape and focus on them, maybe like Albert's light-colored face and how he stands out, can train you to find other things around your home. One of the things I want to talk about observing is going back to that same place on your landscape over and over again to notice changes in what you observe over time. We've got snow on the ground here in Athens, Georgia, and as the snow melts and things change and we get into spring, things are gonna change. And that means animals are gonna change too. I might come over to this log that I found and lift him up. I like to do sometimes very carefully, pulling the log toward me. Look around under this guy. If I don't see anything now, it's okay. I'll put it back where I found it, and I might even flag this guy. Literally, flag this guy. Maybe tie my little bandana around where this log is and encourage my kids to come back to this place once a month, once every 2 weeks, and see what's changing about this. So I'm kind of trucking along. I might look around through some logs. We've got one over here. Might want to look at. Let's get down here and check him out. Oh, and look at this. Look at this. Let's get in here on this. Look at this. Now this, folks, notice, we've got a little buddy down here. He's ferocious. You say, this is a hibernating little marbled salamander. And I'll put him over into my hands. He's asleep right now. You can see his tail is barely moving. A little marbled salamander. These guys are found around logs like this, and with the snow being on the ground, he's asleep right now, barely moving his tail. You can see he's waving at you. Little marbled salamander. I tell you, when we find salamanders, he's almost like he's happy there, wiggling his tail. We find salamanders, that tells us a lot about the quality of this environment. Salamanders can almost breathe through their skin, and their skin is super sensitive. And it tells us a lot about water quality, about air quality, about soil quality out here. Finding a marbled salamander like this, and look at that little face on that. Almost like he's smiling at you. Isn't that cute? About full size, get a little bit bigger than this. Finding this guy tells us a lot about this environment. Man, this is a healthy place. Wouldn't it be cool to put this little fella back where we found him, very gently. Put him back where we found him, and come back to this place again in a month or two and see if he's got any more friends. Often salamanders will come together to a log. So talk about observing, that's pretty wild. I started off at the top of the segment talking about these crazy iPhones. One of the things I tell my students at the University of Georgia is I actually encourage them to bring these to class and to use these in class. Use these when we go out in the woods. Can you imagine working with your kids or grandkids or neighbors, having them use their phones as a photo journal? Taking a picture of that marbled salamander that we found out in the woods, making a couple notes about it, and saving it. Going back to that same log every 2 weeks, every month, taking a picture and noting what you see. Over time, as you're writing about what you're seeing, you're going to move yourself into our third step of our 3-step Ranger Nick plan today, and that is learn from it. So O was observe it, W was write about it, and L is learn from it. In other words, learn from the data that you get and your pictures that you've taken over time. And if you're keeping up, O-W-L, you know what that spells, owl, you know I'm a huge fan. And when you go outside, what a great thing to do together. I'll tell you what, we've had an outstanding time today out in the woods. Wasn't that fun, finding that marbled salamander out there? I know that Albert enjoyed it, that's for sure. I got 2 things I want to send you off with today. One, I'm going to encourage you to get your kids and grandkids and neighbors out there in the woods. Get them observing, get them writing about it, taking pictures, and get them learning from it. You know, there's a book that's been out, and there's copies of this all over the country. It's called Last Child in the Woods, Saving Our Kids from what's called Nature Deficit Disorder. Let's see if we can keep our kids from getting that disorder. And it's not a true disorder, but it's a way of thinking. Let's get these kids off of staring at that iPhone and out looking around their landscape, observing things, taking pictures of things. I think it's going to be a great idea, and it's going to be a great New Year's resolution, I hope, for you. I hope my friend, too, that I was texting with. Well, folks, encourage you to send me an email. Keep those emails coming to me. Tell me about what you're finding out there under logs on your property. Shoot me a note to rangernickuga@gmail.com, and we'll keep in touch that way. Until next time, for the Farm Monitor, I am Ranger Nick. Have a great rest of the month, and we'll see you next month.